Well, welcome back to another edition of Commodity Chat from Trader PhD. I'm head of market content, Dawson Schmidt, and joining me as always for another talk this week is Ag Market Advisor Nick Lawrence.
Hello, everyone.
All right, Nick. Well, we're kind of pushing through the back half of April here, and we started off the week on a pretty strong note, especially for the grain markets here. Big day on Monday. Thought we might have got could have had a turnaround Tuesday this week, but that really didn't happen. And yet again, we're pushing higher again here for the most part here today. A lot of factors moving the market this week, but I think to start off things here is just kind of taking a look at the Bloomberg Commodity Index that I got pulled up here. Of course, we've pulled this chart up before and we've seen that, the ag commodities broadly on an index level were lagging behind the broader index compared to gold, oil, a couple other things with the metals. Kind of pushing to a 1-year high though here, just in with the plethora of things with corn, beans, wheat, kind of all three moving up here, as well as the ongoing bull market and the cattle market as well. Kind of what are your thoughts this week as we're kind of moving through and seeing, things looking pretty positive here?
Yeah, it seems like not that long ago, the narrative was, energies are going higher, but the ags just are lagging and that type of thing. And now, next thing you know, you turn around and the ags are in the bright spot. There's a lot of things going on, I think, in the world today. Or the market has changed its focus on all the things going on in the world today, meaning at first there's obviously some knee jerky type reactions just to the wars, near-term supply related type fears, etc. Um, and now the market's shifted to less reactionary to headlines and more focused on systemic risks moving forward, right? So input supply movement, obviously energy movement, and how that's going to really affect production moving forward. Southern hemisphere, Argentina and Australia as far as planting back wheat. And then really what's that mean, for our, wheat crops and kind of getting our inventory set for our next season. And I think just the overall war and its inflationary pressures that it's having, um, coupled with um, strong demand domestically and globally. I mean, there's all kinds of things kind of coming to a head here that has the market, really on the buy side and trying to secure needs more than anything else.
Yeah, and talking about securing needs too is that, for those that are on the service, is that they got two things kind of this week. They got both a corn buy signal for feed needs, and also we kicked out some sell signals
Yeah.
this week on the corn side. Can you kind of explain a little bit of the thinking behind that? Because, why would we be, recommending buying and recommending selling at the same time? I know there's kind of two different sides to that.
All right, yeah. So on the brokerage side of things, for those of you that aren't brokerage clients, after Monday's trade, going into Tuesday, we felt like there was uh, the momentum was to the upside, and we don't really know how long or how far this is going to last. And so there's two different ideas there, um, that from a cattle feeder standpoint is the 30, 60, 90 days. If you've been going hand to mouth on supplies, maybe there's a little bit of a hedging recommendation there that for whatever reason here in the short term, um, momentum's up, and I'd rather have, I think, those needs hedged because you just never know. You never know how far it's going to go. You never know how long it's going to last. Those types of things. So the big portion there, which is our main focus here at Trader PhD, is the producer level stuff. And so on the feed side of things, shorter term type needs, we're not talking about necessarily booking 27, even though there is some stuff we could do there. I'm not going to get into that right now, but the shorter term summer type needs, if you've been going hand to mouth, that was really the meat and potatoes of that recommendation. And but then beyond that, the guys that maybe want to lightly speculate in their account, a short-term move higher, something that could be like a relatively quick move. I think those opportunities were there. And so that buy signal was less about the grain producer, and more about the feed guy and maybe a slightly speculative guy. So then what does that mean to the grain producer? Well, as volatility had fallen and we just had a sell signal hit overnight, on this old crop contract, as volatility has fallen, it's kind of tightened up our overhead targets in a sense. And so buys and sells can mean different things, I guess, to just how where the producer's position physically. So if a guy has a bunch of inventory left, 50% or more, maybe he ignored the buy signal because he's got plenty of longer exposure physically, and maybe he just sold a little bit into that sell signal this morning. But if a guy had been super aggressive or kind of a no storage type guy, has zero inventory left, um, and wants to take a calculated risk to the downside, right? Because there's plenty of downside risk here, a known amount of risk to the downside, and wants to try to capture a little bit to the upside, then that is what that recommendation was for. So again, just like everything in grain marketing, it's 100% kind of individual needs based, and the market is somewhat wishy-washy here. And depending on your position, physical, food position, your appetite for risk, what you see kind of going forward, um, we can kind of do what needs to fit there.
Yeah.
I don't know if that clears things up or not, but
No, I mean, nice little opportunity to kind of, peel back the curtain a little bit on the brokerage side of things for what we may be doing. And just, as a reminder that futures trading involves risk. There's always going to be those risks, but there's definitely some opportunities out there for producers wanting to kind of, touch on the parts of that are, of course, still, having an impact on the market is, 5 weeks now. I think we're on 4 or 5 weeks of just talking about, ongoing drought in the plains in HRW wheat country. Maybe a little bit of SRW wheat country as well is just, ongoing low conditions. We got the latest crop progress report this week, unchanged at 30% good to excellent for U.S. winter wheat areas, looking at still the lowest in about a decade. But I mean, you continue to look at where these problems are, and we're seeing, these problems ongoing in a lot of the same areas of, the main plains areas that have just seen a lack of precipitation for, going on 2 months now, while we're still seeing some decent conditions in your eastern regions of the SRW wheat growing regions as well.
yeah. So, me and you have been kind of beating that drum on the wheat market, what, like 5 or 6 weeks in a row now, essentially. Um, and that's really not letting up. So, obviously the low production risk is there, for really all of the classes, but especially HRW. And then there's obviously, then again, South America stuff we've been talking, or south of the equator, possible production issues down there, for the growing season that's just ahead. Um, our load makers and those types of things. And then you start adding in there the potential, for, uh, you know, just start to make the government reports as far as, yield, potentially yield reduction or production reductions, whether it's abandonment or yield or whatever, coming down the pike there. And so, kind of what we've been doing here as far as, kind of trying to help you guys. Obviously, preaching a little bit of patience over the past handful of weeks, as far as, marketing stuff is concerned. I think it was 2 weeks ago or so, we recommended my encourage calls on wheat, at some of our overly price targets. Um, and the whole point of those is you've got a relatively cheap call purchase that, if by the time price, or if and when price gets there to our target, you've got the courage or the confidence to make that cash sale. and you've already got a relatively cheap ownership position sitting there, um, just in case prices keep running. So that's the playbook we've been running. We want to make sales into exuberance, hands down, every single time. That's what we want to do, if we can, and kind of having those calls in place help facilitate that.
Yeah. I mean, this has just been going an ongoing issue for a while now, and we've seen that with, where the rain has been over the past 2 months. And, there's a nice corridor where, plenty of rain has occurred. There's that other corridor where, precipitation just has not materialized for a lot of folks, especially as the wheat crop has exited dormancy and moving through critical development stages. You know,
And cotton trying to develop.
yeah,
Yeah, it's been the cotton,
yeah,
a lot of the cotton story too.
yeah. Yep, definitely a cotton story. 97% of cotton areas are in drought. Well, guess what? I mean, the next thing I'm looking at here too is that over the next 7 days, there's supposed to be some rain coming in the forecast, coming into those places that really haven't seen a lot of rain recently. Um, there's I think this is probably going to help out the cotton market more than the wheat market, or the not the market, but the crop in general, because you know cotton planting is still ongoing. There's still some time to rejuvenate a lot of that soil moisture for the southern areas, especially the Texas Panhandle, and getting through the southeast. Georgia looks like it's going to get some key rain that it's been missing out on, and maybe even parts of the Carolinas and Mid-Atlantic. So, I mean, there's definitely some room for improvement on the moisture side for a lot of the places that are still, heading into just through this planting season, versus, crops that have been trying to develop for a little bit here.
Yeah, for sure. I will see if it comes to fruition. Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with you. It's got the potential to help the cotton crop, at this point way before it helps the wheat crop. I just can't imagine uh, how much of a boost any rains moving forward is really going to help. I mean, at
Hmm.
this point, um, the problem was it was limping along a month ago that really needed a drink just to kind of help limp, and then
Hmm.
now it's just kind of, I don't know. I think it's pretty well broke off at this point. Um, Not 100% sure on what the too many rains are going to get us
Yeah.
on the week.
All right. Well, next big news, I guess, of the week was, Argentina kind of got a little bit in the news, is that the Netherlands recently rejected at least two cargoes of Argentinian soybean meal this month, after non-approved genetically modified material was found in those cargoes. I think that's going to impact a little bit of what Argentina was shipping, a little bit of what Brazil was shipping. And then Argentina even came back saying that this rejection raises serious concerns regarding the detection method. And so I don't know if we're going to see a little bit of a tit for tat between the European Union and South America here moving forward when it comes to soybean meal shipments, because I mean, you look at data from Kepler, is that you know, South America, namely Brazil and Argentina, account for the vast majority of soybean meal exports to the European Union or Europe in general. And so, kind of wondering how much of an impact this is going to have. It's kind of seemed like, that might have helped the market early on this week, especially.
Yeah, yeah, you know, for a couple cargoes to get turned away because of they found the wrong traits in those shipments. Well, I mean, you got to imagine there are more ships with those beans on it
Hmm.
somewhere. Um, this is, yeah, so I think this is going to be a closely watched issue moving forward. Uh, yeah, I'm not 100% sure this is over yet. I mean, the EU isn't generally like China, where they, at least that I've noticed, where they do things like this just to kind of, I don't know,
Yeah.
manipulate things.
Well, yeah, we saw it with Brazil. It's like,
Right,
or
right.
China and Brazil, China saying that they found foreign material, and it kind of wrangles them in a little bit. Netherlands can, or the EU could be doing something
So
similar to be
yeah,
like,
not
hey,
the general playbook though. Right.
right. Well,
Well,
well, guess what too is that we've, you know, the South America and the EU have been working on this trade pact recently, the Mercosur trade deal with the EU. South American countries are trying to really keep their foot in the door for shipping to Europe, and I kind of wonder how much impact down the road this can have if they're not really liking what South America is shipping to them.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I think that brings us to the next point too of kind of what's been going on in Argentina is with that soybean harvest too. Is that Argentina soybean harvest kicked off in late February, early May, or early April, and that's been going on a little bit below average, definitely below last year's pace. Um, Kind of wondering if, it kind of seems like we're seeing a little bit of a slow pace of shipments. Again, looking at Kepler data, we saw a pretty low April print for seaborne shipments from Argentina, and then also a kind of low May lineup too. So it kind of seems like things are slowed down a little bit here, at least for the short term. There was news out there that export registrations of soybeans did pick up again just this last week. So I wonder if that, could return to normal. But at least for the short term, it kind of seems like export pressure has not really been there for the soybean market. And we've seen that a lot with, how well our soybean meal shipments have been performing with the lack of what's been going on in Argentina.
Yeah, yeah, our meal demand is strong. Argentina is definitely it's had its harvest issues and now allegedly shipping issues. I don't know what all's going on down there, but it is definitely it's definitely supportive, at least in the near term for us.
Yeah, and I don't know what else you're hearing from some producers too, because I mean, I'm looking at this next chart of how well our cash soybean meal prices have been performing. We hit those multi-year lows back in August, and then we've kind of just been grinding higher and showing a good, strong pace. And it seems like crushers are still needing to crush as much as they can, even though we've already been doing at a record, and that's probably been helping things at least on the soybean bid side of things for producers too, because I mean, it sounds like even though we got record crush, there needs to be more.
Yeah, um, yeah. As long as that crushed bread is working for them, and as long as they can get it, out of the way, I think domestic demand is going to stay strong. I think, and then you mix that with the potential there on just energy prices and biofuels and that type of thing. It's a pretty rosy picture, at least here in the short term, and that's kind of what we've been optimistic. Soybeans here over the past couple weeks. We had that limit down day um, back in what was that March
16?
16th,
Yeah.
and then the market has been just completely sideways for over a month and a half, and just consolidating and just sitting there coiling. But it's been at the at the low side of that range, and it just seemed like there's something brewing there. And at a minimum, would test those old highs in a sense. Um, from back in March. I think that's definitely within the realm of possibilities there.
I mean, in your opinion, like, does the market seem to be kind of waiting for that next thing? Like, we got the May WASD coming up. We're still waiting for that mid-May meeting between Trump and Xi to see, are we going to truly start exporting more soybeans to them again? Because for 2 or 3 weeks now, they've really been not in the U.S. market. They've actually been continuing to be in the Brazilian market and kind of letting. I mean, we still got strong shipments going through, but there's nothing really backfilling that here for the short term.
Is it waiting on the next thing, or is it preparing for the next thing?
Hmm.
I think, like, does the market collectively know the next thing in a sense, right? Now obviously, breaking headlines can be kind of like that spark that moves what everybody thought could happen.
Hmm.
Um, so to your point, possibly, right? I think we're, with the Iran situation not escalating anymore, right? It seems to be somewhat somewhat on ice, heading into that Trump regime meeting. Rumors could be abound here shortly on what could come out of it, what kind of positive, I think we could have some positive rumors heading into that, which would help to your point, I guess. Um, yeah, and then just the South American situation and our start crushing it. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely some positive things out there. Wanting to wrap things up really quick. Last thing to show here is that we got a new weather feature on our mobile app, and this is something that we've been kind of working on for a little bit. We released our new mobile app here, what was it, late March? And we've been kind of adding some things to it to make it even better. One of them being having a weather function that allows you to kind of see what's going on at the tip at your fingertips. This is something that even I've started to use a little bit more often since we published it, and I think it's a nice tool that we can use, what farmers can use to kind of see what's going on with near-term weather as well as a little bit of long-term weather and the drought situation.
Yeah, you guys have worked really hard on getting the app revamped. I think everybody so far had some really positive feedback on just the usability of it. And then, just you individually with all the content you put out there. I think it's great for everybody. And I suggest everybody hop on there at least once a day,
Hmm.
maybe once in the morning, once in the afternoon or evening, and stay caught up on things.
Yeah, definitely. The near-term weather stuff is definitely changing more often, too. So there's things that you can look at throughout the day on there. So yeah, if you're watching this and you're already on the app, if you haven't already checked that out, if you're listening to this or watching this elsewhere, feel free to check that out as well. That's definitely something I think is gonna keep us moving forward in terms of what we can offer as tools for our clients moving forward. But I think we'll end it right there. Lots of things going on in the market in terms of grains just being on fire right now, and so we're gonna keep seeing these developments as they occur and keep guys informed.
Yeah, just things are moving. It's been a very active couple weeks. If you've got sell targets overhead, either at our levels or higher, um, broadly speaking, I don't suggest taking those off, but if you want to have an individual conversation about how we're moving forward, how you need to market stuff going forward, give me a call. We can kind of talk about it. But yeah, with that, talk to you guys next week.
All right. With that, I'm Dawson Schmidt,
And I'm Nick Lawrence.
and this has been Commodity Chat with Trader PhD.